Polish diaspora in Australia is not that large anymore. Although we had a couple of waves of migration that was quite large. So the first one, of course, is post-war, where several hundreds of people that were displaced, refugees, came to Australia from Poland, Ukraine, Belarus, so from areas that were essentially absorbed into USSR after 1945. Currently, according to the census, to the last census, the new census data hasn't yet been released. There were just over 48,000 Poles born in Poland. But the diaspora itself is larger. It is estimated that it's around 200,000 people of Polish heritage that live here in Australia. Poles are mostly concentrated in Melbourne, actually, and in Sydney. But there are Polish community pockets in all the cities, including Adelaide, where there's a place called Polish Hill that is a place where lots of people who immigrated more than 100 years ago settled. It's sort of evenly spread. There are no suburbs as such where Polish people live. So unlike America, people are all over the place. But the first Pole arrived here in Australia in 1803. His name was Joseph Potaski, and he came from actually England. He was a convict that arrived in Tasmania. The first documented Pole, I guess you could call it that. But the other very, very famous Pole, whose name nobody can pronounce in Australia, is Edmund Strzelecki, and here they butcher it and call him Strzelecki. And he came here in 1839. He was a very famous explorer who named Australia's highest peak, and let me get this right, Mount Kościuszko, or Kosciuszko, as we butcher it here in Australia. So once again, Strzelecki and Kościuszko. So learn that one. So he traveled across Australia and discovered and named many of the geographical features, and he put his stamp on Australia's map, I guess. And not many people know who he was. So I think the Polish diaspora here in Australia makes a lot of effort to try and educate people about who he was and why he named the highest mountain here, Kościuszko. So in Adelaide or South Australia, first immigrants or settlers came in around 1856. So, nearly 200 years ago. And then post-war, displaced people, refugees, came here on contracts. Basically, they had to work up at Snowy River or one of the newly built, features here in Australia. And after 2 years, they could apply for residence. And after some time, I think it was 5 years at the time, they could apply for citizenship. So descendants of those people are still here. Most of them have died out. The second big wave of immigrants, that's the Solidarity immigration in 1980s. There was 20,000 Polish people that came to Australia. They were mostly younger, educated, so just a different demographic profile. And nowadays, people might come here from Poland as students or young professionals. Maybe there are marriages, but in terms of numbers, they're very low. They're not as high as they used to be. However, Polish people still like to stick together. There's a very big Polish festival here in Melbourne every year in November. It's coming up, I think, 14th of November this year. So it's an opportunity for Polish people to get together, but also celebrate the heritage. And it's attended by something like 50,000 people. It's one of the biggest festivals of Polish culture and heritage in the world. So if you are in Melbourne in November, make sure you put it on your to-do list. It's an amazing celebration of food and culture and music and all of that. And there are smaller events throughout the year, like film festivals and other celebrations of Polish culture and heritage in Australia.